Welcome to the video guide for Kaiyan's Wrath Expert, the light Agito Uprising boss fight released as part of patch 1.17 of Dragalia Lost. My name is Xenozilus, and let's get straight to it. Throughout the fight, Kaiyan has two persistent abilities, the first of which is Battleground, which creates a persistent yellow field around Kaiyan. While inside the field, adventurers will deal double damage, but also take 50% extra damage from Kaiyan. His second ability is Adamantine Shield. Kaiyan will intermittently buff himself with a shield, which blocks all damage and afflictions. Attacking the shield will cause a small amount of damage to you. This is best removed by using characters with skills or abilities that can remove buffs, but the shield can be brought down temporarily with some brute force if necessary. As with all Agito fights, certain mechanics will be skipped or repeated based on phase progression and the remaining hit points of the boss. Let's get started with Phase 1. The fight opens with Kaiyan targeting the farthest player with a large purple AoE. Run or roll out of this as necessary unless you're playing an enmity character. Kaiyan then follows this with a spin attack, which takes a small amount of time to charge. Kaiyan will slowly move towards a targeted player while this attack is active. This can be iframed or even dodged by chaining rolls together. Ranged characters can continue to DPS while this is active, though be sure to maintain enough distance to not get clipped. The first named mechanic is Unbreakable Satellites. In Phase 1, Kaiyan will spawn 4 or more orbs that slowly orbit him. Touching these orbs will cause you to take a small amount of damage, inflicting blindness. The orbs will disappear after 30 to 40 seconds, depending on the number spawned. This mechanic is also present in Phase 2. In Phase 2, the orbs persist until Kaiyan is broken. The next mechanic is Fight for Survival. Kaiyan will target 2 players with purple donut AoEs. After a short amount of time, these will spawn cages that inflict damage when touched. In order to handle the next mechanic properly, all players should stack inside these rings. Be careful not to stagger the rings by too much, as you risk sandwiching players between barriers and stun locking them. These barriers can actually be ignored with a life shield. If this mechanic repeats, the number of cages will increase. Next up is Every Man for Themselves. Kaiyan targets a single player with a red stack marker. This deals a large amount of damage, but damage is split between all players within the marker. Taking the marker all by yourself is likely to mean death, but a large enough life shield and defense buffs may allow you to live through it. Following this, we have a series of unnamed slam attacks. Kaiyan targets the closest player with a series of cones. The larger center cone is red and can be iframed or rolled through, while the side cones are purple. Stay close to him to make it easier to roll through him and avoid the attack. Otherwise, dodge or iframe the red section as necessary. After this, you'll see Kaiyan begin to repeat some of his mechanics. However, allow Phase 1 to drag on for long enough and he will go on to use Natural Selection. This is an unavoidable arena-wide AoE that will deal a medium amount of damage. With the current state of the Shadow roster, sufficiently built teams will generally enter Phase 2 between the Fight for Survival and Every Man for Themselves mechanics. Let's get started with Phase 2. Kaiyan blasts the arena with unavoidable damage as he enters the second phase, before entering his Phase 2 rotation, starting off with a shield. So Kaiyan charges a red donut AoE and activates Adamantine Shield. Next up is Crushing Cataclysm. Kaiyan moves to the center of the arena, grabbing the furthest player and rendering them unable to act, as well as spawning a weak point. This starts a slow charging purple AoE on the trapped player. Free the trapped player and cancel the attack by destroying the weak point. With a sufficiently large life shield from Grace, however, this attack is rendered non-lethal. If you're running a team composition with a healer, the healer should try and bait this attack by moving away from the center of the arena. Consider holding skills to quickly destroy the weak point if necessary. Next we have Supreme Spears. Kaiyan moves to the center of the arena, spawning 3 to 6 red, blue and white spears. After a short moment, these will begin to move towards Kaiyan. If they meet, they'll apply Adamantine Shield as well as a strength buff for red, defense buff for blue or regen buff for white spears. These spears can be targeted and destroyed, but are not vulnerable until they start moving. If your team has enough DPS, it's possible to skip straight to Supreme Spears or Crushing Cataclysm after the Phase 2 transformation. Following this, we have some swipes. Cayenne does a series of avoidable swipe attacks from his left and right hands with red telegraphs. These will sometimes be followed up by a double exclamation point telegraph, followed by an unmarked but avoidable swipe behind him. Followed by this is a charge. Cayenne will face the closest player before charging up and dashing in a straight line. These should be baited away from Supreme Spears if any are still in the arena. Next is Universal Annihilation. Cayenne will move to the center of the arena before charging an arena-wide unavoidable AoE, inflicting paralysis. This mechanic is often a prime opportunity to dragon tank the damage, even staying within the battleground effect to sacrifice the dragon as soon as possible. In a 4 DPS team, dragon tanking this mechanic may be necessary to complete the run. Following this is an unnamed attack, but I'll call it a mini annihilation. Cayenne charges a smaller purple AoE that fills the battleground area and inflicts blind. Finally, we have the grab attack. Cayenne will target the furthest player, grabbing and throwing them. The grabbed player is unable to act until they hit the edge of the arena and will take a small amount of damage. Any players hit will also take a small amount of damage. That concludes mechanics that you'll encounter in the fight. Keep in mind that mechanics may repeat and the order in which you encounter them may vary depending on your team DPS. Next, we have team compositions. When it comes to team compositions, there are a few that tend to be found in public rooms. They'll generally fall into 4 DPS or healer and 3 DPS compositions. The pair of adventurers you'll find in most speed players are Gala Alex and Gala Cleo. Teams with a 2-2 spread of these adventurers will often blow through Cayenne in a minute or even less, ignoring most mechanics or making them disappear almost immediately. If you're lacking the Gala adventurers, however, other high DPS adventurers such as Forta and Mana Spiraled Vice will also perform admirably. It's actually quicker for me to list characters that I don't recommend you bring, being Audric, Sazanka, Berserker, Taro, Orion, Vida, Zace, and Norwyn. These adventurers all perform poorly within the Shadow roster and also lack a spiral to bring their performance up to par. If you're looking to bring a healer, Grace or Cleo are preferred due to their ability to dispel buffs and deal with the adamantine shield mechanic. In terms of power level, if you're looking to tackle this fight, you should look to bring at least a maximum Unbound Chimera Tech Tier 2 weapon, ending up at roughly 8 to 8500 might for non-spiraled characters. Players struggling to meet that metric may need to work on their Halidom facilities or consider augments. All in all, Expert Cayenne has a fairly low barrier to entry as an endgame fight. The general populace greatly overpowers the content, allowing you to be dragged through pretty quickly. Hopefully this guide is helpful and lets you prepare for Master Cayenne further down the line. As always, if you have any questions, leave them down in the comments. Feel free to leave a like if you found this guide helpful, and subscribe if you'd like to see more of this content. Take it easy, stay safe, and I'll see you next time.